We are honored by the presence of Shri Anant Mishra, Livguard Energy Technologies, Dr. Madhusudan Joshi, SBO ICAT, Smt Rashmi Rao, Mathworks India, Shri Deepangshu Dev Sarmah, Mobility Outlook, and Shri Anshul Gupta, Okaya EV. Dr. M.K. Jain from Diageo will join us via online. It's my pleasure to invite you all to the dais for conducting the panel discussion. With over 20 years of rich experience in media industry, Shri Deepangshu Dev Sarmah is currently the founding editor of Mobility Outlook, India's first and only media platform that offers a holistic perspective of the entire mobility ecosystem, automotive to aviation, railways to maritime, hyperloop to all forms of micro-mobility solutions. I would like to invite the moderator of the session, Shri Deepangshu Dev Sarmah, to conduct the session. Over to you, sir.
Thank you very much. I appreciate this invitation to be part of this session today. And why don't we all just move forward? All of you, why don't you come to the front seats? It will be easy for, I think, all the panelists to focus better. And then we can have and try and have a more engrossing discussion. Thank you very much. So, let me quickly introduce our panelists today. We have Mr. Anshul Gupta, Managing Director, Okaya Electric Vehicles. Anshul is assertive yet considerate, passionate yet logical, persuasive and inspiring. He is a tech enthusiast and is always eager to adapt and grow, which is a trait acquired as a hallmark of an illustrated family he belongs to. He holds a bachelor's degree in civil engineering from the University of Bath, UK, and he started his career in 2015 as the Managing Director of Microtech Infrastructures. Since then, he has been one of the growth catalysts and has infused productive energy in Okaya. He is currently heading the complete business of Okaya EV, Okaya EV charging stations, and Microtech real estate portfolio. Anshul, welcome. Our next, I'd like to invite Mr. Anand Mishra, Vice President, Lithium Business at Livguard. He specializes in business development, project management, and business analysis. He has imbibed the best practices from various industries like IT, telecom, infrastructure, and automobiles, and is capable of executing a new project from start to end. An analytical bent of mind with a desire to solve problems and create solutions. He has successfully executed projects, team building, and processes, and it takes a process-driven approach and has been a driving force for the organization. Dr. Madhusudan Joshi, Head E&E at ICAT Manesar, has received his doctoral degree from the Indian Institute of Technology, Delhi, in the field of cryptology. With overall 21 plus years of experience in the field of automotive R&D, certification and validation, Dr. Joshi currently looks after the strategic business operations at ICAT Center 1. Previously, he was heading the electronics and electrical group at ICAT. Information and data security, functional safety, intelligent transportation systems, and electric mobility are the topics of his interest. Now, of course, he has published over about 40 research papers in international journals, conferences, and symposiums in the field of security, intelligent vehicular lighting, ITS, and e-mobility. He is also a co-applicant of 6 patents and 2 copyrights in different areas of his work, and is a vice chairman of sectional committee on ITS, an active member of BIS committees, e-mobility under TED 27 and ETD 51, automotive lighting, and automotive electronics. Dr. Joshi, welcome. Our final guest today is Ms. Rashmi Rao. She's the industry manager for automotive at Mathworks India. Rashmi is responsible for strategic technology planning and rollout for the India region. Our focus is to understand the major trends in Indian automotive industry and engage with senior executives and industry bodies in order to foster the adoption of Mathworks tools in the megatrends of automated driving, electrification, and data sciences. She has 19 years of industry experience, spanning across tier 1 such as Bosch, OEMs such as Maruti Suzuki India Limited, and tool providers such as ETAS and Mathworks. Her work cuts across domains of diesel control systems, body control, chassis, data sciences, and ADAS domains. Gentlemen and lady, welcome to this session. I'll do a very short introduction. Now, we all, through the day, you have listened to several speakers, got insightful perspectives on BEVs, BOVs. So, we recently at Mobility Outlook, we ran a survey on electric mobility. What we wanted to understand from people in general was, how do they perceive electric mobility? What is their understanding of electric mobility? We got 68,000 plus responses, right? For a very niche focused survey, that was a pretty big number. Our validation partner is Frost & Sullivan, so we work together with Frost & Sullivan on such surveys that we run. Some of the other surveys that we run into 2.5 lakh responses. But here, the interesting part was, I'm just going to focus on one aspect that that came across from the survey. We asked people about their views, their perspectives on safety, right? How do they associate safety with electric mobility? 50% among four-wheeler respondents had fears about EV safety. 50%. They were not sure if their vehicles, if they would invest in a product, in an EV product because of safety concerns. In two-wheelers, the number was 67%. Only 43% of the respondents felt that EVs are safe. 67% felt EVs are not safe. So clearly, when you look at the customer, and when I am talking about 68,000 responses, we got responses from all over the country, north to south, east to west, all over, across demographics, across age brackets, right? But our focus was intenders, buyers, intenders. Now, so there's clearly a concern as far as EV safety is concerned, right? So what we're going to do today is actually understand that, right? And I'm glad that we have a panel that will bring in different perspectives. So I'll start with you, Anshul. Your first thoughts on the subject that we're discussing today? Can we have a mic?
So as soon as the word safety came into context, the first thing was fire that popped up in my head, right? So as a consumer also, so I drive electric. So the first thing, and I have a kid, right? So the first thing that comes into my mind while opting an electric was the fire aspect.
Sure.
How safe is the vehicle when I'm taking my family in it? When I'm not with my kid, and how is she going to be in the vehicle? So the concerns are real as a consumer as well. And so the safety aspect would also, so I'll just take you through the cycle of purchasing which I went through as a consumer. While I was opting, I looked at, being into technical background. So I checked the chemistry, I did everything. This is after being an informed customer, right? And majority of the people, 99% of the population, will not be that informed because they're not into the space as just a consumer. So the aspect with respect to family safety, on-road safety, while you're charging your car at your home, because the chargers are installed at your home parking lot or something. So the entire, the integral structural safety, if the car catches fire or something during charging, it's all real, right? So as a buyer, I could just do a few things, which was take an informed call on the vehicle manufacturer. Then working on the installation, where would the charger be actually installed? What if it catches fire? Will it actually destroy the building or anything if it happens in a night time? So all these factors are absolutely real, and I personally sort of went through it,
right?
And it really changed my buying decision towards the brand. Right? So I would not probably choose a certain brand, but I would go for another brand wherein I would feel mentally more at peace.
Right.
So that is how it is coming to me when you ask that question.
Right. So if that is the case with an informed buyer, imagine what is the state of mind with people who aren't really aware. right? So, Dr. Joshi, your first thoughts on the subject that we're discussing today, challenges and solutions.
Yeah, thank you, Deepangshu. I would like to echo what Anshul has said. Definitely there are concerns related to EV safety, especially with the incidences of fire that has happened to the two-wheelers and the four-wheelers. But I would have like to bring a different perspective as well. There's one very, very important and critical perspective of safety,
Right.
where we all should be concerned about, because we all are going to be using these vehicles. And as far as the automotives are concerned, this being a very highly regulated area right from inception, will definitely would like to have a very safe electric vehicle also. So the efforts are being on from different at various levels to bring forward some regulations or some more kind of safety checks which can be introduced to the EVs so that we try to make them more safe. But having said that, there is another important aspect which we should be aware of. That for an OEM who is actually trying to design a vehicle, or for a battery manufacturer who is trying to design a battery, it is not only the aspect of safety which is going to play the ultimate role in that basic design. What is important is that if the thermal management of a battery is not done in a right way, it has other implications also, right? And that should be the driving force for all the OEMs and battery manufacturers. What is going to be important is that a very well designed battery which has a perfect or near to perfect kind of a thermal management system will ensure that apart from that fact that the battery is safe, it will also help the longevity of the battery. It will also help to cover the aspects of capacity fade. It will also help to cover the overall thermal imbalances which are happening inside the battery. And all these factors basically lead to the deterioration in the performance of the battery. So if you are having a battery which is poorly designed as far as thermal aspect is concerned, it is not only going to impact safety, it is going to impact the overall performance of the battery.
Right.
And of course, then the reputation of the OEM. So my thought would be that designing a safe battery, designing a thermally well-managed battery is need of the hour, not only from the safety perspective, also from the performance and durability. Thank you.
Wonderful, Dr. Joshi. I'll pass it over to Rashmi. Your initial comments on the subject that we discussed today.
Thank you, Deepangshu. So my perspective is that, Deepangshu, as Mathworks, we basically come into the picture much before the vehicle actually comes, comes out of the shop floor. So we basically work with R&Ds starting from the design, like Mr. Joshi said, right up to the system design, to the component design, to what is the kind of segment the OEM wants to target, what are the design constraints like Prasanna showed you today, and so on. So my first take, Deepangshu, on this is safety is a journey. We have to think about it right from the requirement stage to when we are developing the vehicle, what motor, what battery, to basically designing the thermal aspects of the battery, like Mr. Joshi said, and then calibrating the vehicle and then giving it to the consumer. So safety cannot come in a jiffy. Safety is a journey, and we have to basically think about that. So as Mathworks, and I'm not going to talk about Mathworks because I know Sunil spoke about it, Prasanna spoke about it, our aim is to help the customers in that journey. It's not possible today to write the software that you want to do, to basically design the batteries that you want to do. Prasanna spoke about how do you know basically which cell is at what temperature. Can you really do that on a real vehicle? No, you can't. You basically need tools like us. And in the ecosystem, we would like to basically work with you in that journey and help you to make the right designs, to write the correct software so that you have a very capable BMS. I mean, so what if we can't make cells within the country, but we have the best software talent? Let's write the best software there. So this is my opening comments. Safety is a journey, modeling and simulation is a tool, and players like Mathworks are certainly with you people, with you engineers, be it tier 1s or OEMs, to basically deliver on that promise of safety, which is today, it's non-negotiable. like we discussed in the morning. So that's my opening statement, Deepangshu.
Sure. I'll go to you now. Your first comments on the subject, coming from more of an ecosystem player, right? I mean, you have operations across different domains within the EV ecosystem. So your initial comments on safety, challenges and solutions, of course. Yeah.
Sure. So before I just take that answer specifically, so I think I'll just go back a bit on where we started on safety and fires. So in my previous setup, we were doing CNG components for automotive OEMs, and some of you may have been well aware DTC buses catching fire in Delhi and all Halla some 10-12 years ago, and then CNG was unsafe, right? And the same analogy I can see is EV is unsafe. So inherently it wasn't CNG that was unsafe. It was the way the product was designed using, cast iron CS tubes vis-a-vis, SS and, rusting and leakages and all of that. So this is one perspective I wanted to share because one another industry of CNG has gone through that. And with that background, coming to the EV side, so again it is more on at a system level, how good or bad is your product inherently designed. When you talk of a battery, whether it's for a two-wheeler or a bus or a LCV, when we look at it, you also mentioned at ecosystem level, 5 or 6 things that come together to make this as complete finished goods, which make one finished good as a battery, right? Cell inherently is a complete product. Right. Then you have the product design inherently, which is an individual item. You have the electronics as a complete product. Then you have chargers, vehicle integration. All of this, first of all, has to come together at a system level, because any of these could trigger a mishappening. And the attributable, obviously, since the product that catches fire is the guilty party in all the cases anyway. So I'm not trying to defend anything, but I think we have to look at each of these, and then each of these need to be addressed with different reasons. So you asked also, let's say, with some sort of, I would give some examples. So when you are selecting cells, inherently do they have a fuse and a vent? Right? So if your cell selection inherently is flawed for commercial reasons or otherwise, it is a potential hazard built in by design. You go to product design, you have, is it environmentally, IP67 for water ingress or, for drop testing, any of those things. So that is again what kind of material, etc. we are taking. You go to electronics, you touched upon how good or bad is your hardware, software. My point is we'll need to probably address each of these individually.
Correct.
And also taking the thermal aspect into the picture as well. So what's the temperature rise, how good is the temperature distribution, how many sensors do you have? Let's say I know everything, but my BMS has one temperature sensor, it's pointless for a volume of my point is it has to be good engineering product. It is not a white goods kind of category that you could probably get away with. It's a class A item where people's life is at stake, and that is how it should be looked at.
Right. So from the panelists today, one thing is pretty clear, and we must look at it in primarily 2 phases. One is the ideation, the pre-production. That is one. How much investment? How much investment are you willing to make in making your foundation strong? Right? That is the key part. Right? Rashmi talked about it. You've talked about it. You've talked about it. The other is when once the product gets ready, once the product is out in the market, then it's the other aspect. You're talking about maintenance. You're talking about the conditions and all of that. So we'll start with the first phase, right? So Rashmi, maybe I'll start with you. Design, engineering, simulation. Now, what is the ideal approach for, let's say, an EV OEM to take? Once someone thinks about, okay, I want to get into this segment. 1, the right approach. 2, once that happens, how do you take it to market? The go-to-market strategy for this. What should be the roadmap? What should be the approach?
Thanks, Deepangshu. That's a good question. So obviously I can share the learnings that we as a company have gotten working with many customers in this EV range, and I'd like to tell the story more from what we have learned from customers. Right? So Sunil spoke about today a two-wheeler company, and we are working with many, but we are able to speak about Ather because Ather allows us to do that. They came to our conference and they spoke about it. So let's take that as a case study, and then I'll probably extrapolate to a larger market. So when Ather started, basically they were incubated in IIT Madras, right? And the philosophy and the mindset was, how do we get the right engineering skill to do trade-off studies, to do design of basically components, to not basically shirk on writing some software because software is needed, but how do you do it best in class? I mean, this is the route that they took. They said that, hey, we are not going to really cut corners, right? We are a technology company. I mean, the mindset is different. I think this is an important route for two things. I mean, we heard today, I think it was Mr. Naran who said, we can build 2 vehicles, but how do you scale that to 1 million, right? I mean, when that comes into the picture, this mindset is very important. And the next is sustainability. Even if you're able to scale, how do you sustain it? So basically, I would say you need to have that design thinking. And Deepangshu, you spoke about it. Don't shirk on investments initially. I mean, today we had a passionate debate about training at Mathworks. I mean, the costs of training at Mathworks. It's actually heartening to see for us that, there's this passionate debate going on. And we know this is a very customer, like price sensitive segment. But the fact is that these investments you make early on will reduce your operation costs, when you're thinking about these fines that you have to pay, or recall costs, or brand loss, right, which are much bigger things. So the winners in this space we have seen don't shirk away from these investments because they are thinking about a class product, not about getting something to the market very quickly. Sorry, Deepangshu, long answer.
No, absolutely fine. I think this is working now. Anshul, I'll come to you, pass on the mic to you. For your comments on this, what has been your approach, right? I mean, one is to say that, yes, we have products in the market. We want to be successful as well. Every company wants to be successful. What has been your approach? And do you think that's the right approach to take?
Okay. I think the mic is working.
Oh, okay.
So fortunately, the part of the presentation also for me covered the strategy, the approach you would take as a company, what we adopted also. So, as you also mentioned, starting off with the survey, we also came up with similar figures where safety was number one concern of the consumer, then moved on to range. So using those two critical factors, all of the designing efforts, we actually spent around 3 years supplying batteries to others, right? Where we were supplying batteries, lithium-ion batteries to other customers, OEMs, and we took their challenges and designed battery pack as per the end consumer need. And as ma'am also rightly mentioned, that it's an initial investment which may hurt a lot of people, but when you're looking at the entire perspective, the entire horizon of the company's existence, that cost is actually negligible, right? Why so? Because at the end of the day, when it's such a product where you would have to either do servicing of the parts at the consumer's home or at the nearest dealer center. So all of those aspects have a tremendous cost. And imagine if one component goes bad and you've supplied thousands and lakhs of products in the market, and it's not something which is also finable, right? A minor issue which does not call for a recall. Even for that, the cost the company will actually spend will be so much higher in mobilizing the resources, planning the spares, doing the servicing, getting the faulty parts back. All of those aspects covered, I think it's really, really important to invest from day one. And certainly it's challenging, and it's more challenging for startups, right? So we are fortunate enough, we have companies reserves and surplus coming in from other side. There is no the FDI coming in or any sort of PE investors also on board. That also makes the game a little bit more fun for us with the respect that we have to work like a startup, but at the same time we can't really compromise because we know the industry will consolidate further on. So the amount of money you can spend, it doesn't necessarily have to be huge amounts of money. The right amount of money to build the go-to-market strategy that you're opting for, it should support that, right? And overall, the best service is no service, right? So with that motto going ahead, we have already, in the last 2-3 years, really invested a lot on the electronics front. And at the same time, when you're, the previous presentation also covered the regulations, the CMVR acts and everything. It's actually the agency is doing a lot of effort, the government is doing a lot of effort to pre-pass the entire qualification process is so stringent that itself cannot, you just cannot sell a low-grade product. So product quality has become a table stake, right? So without that, I don't think really it's possible. And investment is something which is different, it can be high for, it's a subjective, it's a very
For sure.
subjective.
For sure.
But yeah, I hope that. So for us, the approach we took to answer the question, after studying the market survey we did for around a year, we built our products around those two specific challenges which we had, which was range anxiety and the battery safety, which helped us to select the certain chemistries we had opted for. We had to make certain compromises on certain space element, but keeping those attributes as the first and foremost one. That's where the entire designing started, and luckily the further selection of components, the designing of the PMSs, modularity, all things come into picture, and which overall at the end of the day, the end consumer gets benefit. Why? Because product is the number one, reliable. Even if something goes bad, there is a high level of serviceability within 24-hour window, right? So you really can't select multiple platforms for multiple vehicles, multiple components when the service will go haywire. So that is the approach we have taken to keep it simple, and it's not really that simple. It's simple, but it's not easy. That's how I would sum it up for the question that you put forward.
Okay, great. Anand, when you talk of batteries, right, or when you talk of, there are several components that we're talking about. Now, the challenge is to get the right number of components and the right components for the particular use case, right? We can't possibly have one solution addressed for all kinds of solutions that exist in the market, correct? So what are your thoughts on that, and how do you really approach that at Livguard?
So again, specifically for our, let's say I can give it with two examples, let's say. Right? There is the one use case where you want a product, for benign kind of application, not very stressful, and you want to run it for a longer period. That's the use case. And you have another use case where you want to have a fast charging. So effectively, if your cell itself that you are selecting cannot support let's say 1C or a 2C charging, then you have wrongly specced in the product. Neither will it perform from longevity perspective, and of course from what it does internally to thermal safety and all of that is a separate matter. So that is one. So typically our approach is we don't quote products. So our sales team has been told very clearly we are not selling dabba. That this is because there is a spec sheet,
right,
and this is the price. So that's not how we kind of sell it. So we are forcing, and if we don't understand the application, we are happy to say a regret. Right? Because sometimes even the customers are trying to build. It's not that they don't know. They are also like, we've discussed a lot of startups in the system, right? So they are also trying to figure out. So in cases where, let's say, we don't understand what the customer wants, we are happy to, pass that opportunity rather than, try and kind of peddle what we have. So that's our approach, that if we don't understand the application, we're not interested to serve it.
All right. So that's a good approach. Dr. Joshi, from your experience, do you think what Anand said in terms of wrong specs, do you think that's one of the major concerns when it comes to EVs, particularly in the two-wheeler space?
See, what Anand has just mentioned is actually while you finalize the specification of the product. So while finalizing the specification, the end application has to be very clear. So like you said, batteries for a stationary application or a mobile application, or for for a two-wheeler or four-wheeler, may have a totally different design parameter. And one more thing I would like to add upon this is that from the perspective of the testing and validation agency, that as far as the electric vehicle OEMs and component makers are concerned, a large percentage of these manufacturers are relatively new to this automotive world, I would say. And if you go to the legacy of the automotives, there has been a very strong pillar called design and product validation. Right? Now, design and product validation is again very much centered on the kind of specifications you have. The DVP program for the same component meant for different vehicles may be a totally different area of work. So we have been doing that. We have experience of running more than 1,000 DVP programs for various OEMs. even for the different vehicle categories, the specifications of the DVP change. So that learning curve has to come, for EVs as well. So I would definitely like to support what you said.
While we've talked about the ideation and the pre-production stage, right? Rashmi, your comments on the importance, the criticality of predictive analysis in a situation like this, right? I mean, we have tools now that that can actually benefit tremendous amount of almost real-time testing, right? So, from a predictive analysis point of view, what is it that Mathworks is offering? And how much can an OEM, let's say a new startup, benefit from using tools such as yours?
Thanks, Deepangshu. That's a great question. I'll probably break it into two parts because I'm just taking, what Mr. Joshi said about validation. So basically, to go a little bit into validation, typically what we have seen is OEMs have three major steps. So as you're basically writing the code or the model, you do a model in loop design. The software is ready, you do a software in loop design. And before you actually take it to the two-wheeler, you do what is called as a hardware in loop design. So you get as much hardware as you can and you basically test it with the simulator without actually spending time on the two-wheeler, right? So why do we do that? So there are some things that we simply can't do on a two-wheeler, right, on the vehicle itself, like thermal runaways, for example. Prasanna spoke about that. It's hard to basically get your battery to so many different operating conditions at cell levels and do it. So this is a little bit about the testing and validation. Now, as Mathworks, we basically provide the models that you need for this testing. So the idea is do it early, fail early, and basically fix the bugs early before you actually take it to the hardware. So we have different levels of what we call in the industry today as front loading. Before you go to the two-wheeler, do it on the hill. Before you do it on the hill, do it just with the software, without the hardware at all. Before you actually generate the code, do it with the model. That is model in loop. At each stage, we basically help you with models and simulation so that you are able to do the validation. Now let me come to the predictive part, Deepangshu, the second part, what you were alluding to. So today, I'm sure all of us here have heard about battery analytics, right? So essentially, it is about predicting the state of charge or the state of health, right? So what is the charge and how degraded, what's basically the state of health of the battery. We are actually able to do a lot of this with the data that we have today. And this is again something that when I was just speaking with Mr. Joshi before this roundtable, if we could work together with the battery suppliers and bring the Indian ecosystem to start working with data. I mean, someone said today, machine learning and this is far away, we need to skill on this. I beg to differ. I think we need to start this journey right away. Again, reasons because data is available with us, we have the skilled workforce to work on this, and the use cases with such predictive analysis are huge, right? So we have basically softwares that will help you to do this machine learning, to build a digital twin, which is a real-time model of basically the battery so that you can do predictive analysis. And there are a lot of trainings, there's a lot of trainings that are not paid, just before we get into that conversation. There's a lot of videos on what are digital twins, how Mathworks tools can be used. And I would basically reach out and tell these either startups or incumbent OEMs to start looking at these aspects. And as Mathworks, we'll be very happy to enable and work with you on those.
Right. So, Dr. Joshi, do you think that's again something? It's absolutely important to do validation, predictive analysis, because it's not just one condition that we are dealing with in India, right? Look at weather conditions, look at road conditions, look at north, south, east, west, center. I mean, there are a variety of diverse conditions that we are actually dealing with. So your validation and predictive analysis probably becomes all the more important.
That's what I tried to mention, that that DVP, which we call, becomes so critical because of this diversified prevailing conditions all over. There is high on the eastern side, there is very high amount of rainfall, and high humidity and high temperatures in the down south, extremely cold temperatures in the north, etc. So our DVP programs, which we already run for various OEMs, are actually have been evolving year on year, and after doing a lot of field validations, like Rashmi has already mentioned. So there have been a cycle of DVP. First we do the validation at the design level, then we do at the component level, then we do at the system level, and then we go to the vehicle. So there are various stages she has already mentioned. So all this for products which are already established products, so to say, in the automotive domain, has been going through these cycles of DVP, which involves all different conditions, or all different, not only of the weather conditions, all different road conditions, all different usability conditions. I will not like to mention the name of the OEM, but there is one OEM in India who is so particular about these validations that if I can recall, there are more than 1,000 different kinds of validations that they do, which can involve even the sweat, the impact of sweat on that component. So they go down to that level. So we have to actually evolve this EV ecosystem in that way gradually. That is what I would like to mention. Thank you. And make sure that the product is safe by design, safety by design, which we call. And eventually, what I can foresee with IoT coming into picture, security also by design. So safety and security by design will have to come into the entire automotive space. It's not about only EV, but about the entire automotive, which is evolving as an IoT product. And of course, with EV coming into picture, safety also comes in.
I'd now like to go into another aspect of, we're talking batteries, we're talking of simulation, predictive analysis, DVPs. But Anshul, tell me from battery chemistry perspective, right? What exists in the market today. But we're looking at a future where we're looking at, of course, everything being safe, the products being safe. We're looking at costs. So from all those aspects, how do you see the evolution of battery chemistries in the Indian context?
That's a very interesting space to be in, and fortunately that was one of my major interest areas also as when I was an engineer. So chemistry is something that really excites me, and I actually went as a company when we started figuring out the cell chemistry that we really want to opt for. There are various charts available, there are various studies, researches available. But when you look at the future aspect, why do lithium-ion batteries actually burn? It's because of liquid electrolyte, which is exact. So I'm particularly very keen on three technologies which are coming up. Certain trials have also been done. Some people are working on mass production also, which is solid electrolyte-based battery cells, and also the sodium-ion-based batteries, because lithium at some point will become a constraint, right? Cobalt prices will keep continuing to rise. So as an alternative, because the EV revolution will keep going on. So there are two critical technologies which I'm personally looking at, and which is solid state electrolyte and also the sodium-ion based batteries. And both have been fairly successful in the trial stages, in the validation stages, and a couple of companies have started doing pilot production and going up to scaling up to mass production as well. So that is one area where I feel within the lithium-ion portfolio, that is something that is very exciting. When you sort of opt out from lithium, again there are various chemistries, hydrogen fuel cell. You've seen IOCL tying up with a company for aluminium air-based batteries.
Right.
So chemistry selection is currently too wide and open. However, the government subsidies, norms, incentives have sort of made us select a particular technology, which is again building the supply chain, without which we will be headless chickens running around without a constant supply chain. So I feel that the futuristic, as per me, would be solid state electrolyte, followed by sodium-based lithium-ion batteries, where the prices would further come down and the affordability will not be a constraint for the consumer. So that's what I have.
Okay. So help us understand, one follow-up question, or help us understand when you say solid state as well as sodium ion, you're talking of solutions for all segments of the vehicle industry.
Correct.
Right?
Okay. So as a technology of cell, whether it's a car, bus, etc. So the same technology of the same chemistry would be available for.
And that's scalable across. Okay. All right. Anand, your thoughts on this again? I mean, how? Sorry, you wanted to say something?
Saying I
Plus one.
Yeah.
Oh, you said plus one.
It's
Okay.
pretty much.
Okay. So again, then I'm going to just change the question and ask you more about BMS, right? The focus on BMS. I mean, I heard Prashant talking about there's certain limitations, right? But from an Indian context again, right, the criticality, the importance of having the BMS right? Do you work on that area as well?
Yes.
Okay, could you give us some perspectives on that?
So I mean, I don't see that why, firstly, even from a cost perspective, I don't think that we are very far out compared to what some of the Chinese imports that we get. So from a supply chain and cost perspective, first of all, I think we are very competitive. And second is when you talk again BMS, I mean, some of those points have been mentioned. At a hardware level, it has to be robust. So automotive grade components vis-a-vis industrial, your component selection, your redundancies that you build in. These are the things that will have to come into play. And see, fundamentally, if you want to go to a very elementary level, you only have voltage, current and temperature to play with, right? So 3 input spaces which we are playing around. So if you only talk about, protections, etc., and redundancies and interrupts and all of those being factored, I think that is something that Indian companies and people competency-wise, I think we're very good and we can do that. The real challenge or your differentiation comes in your SOC estimations, your SOH algorithms, and those are the kind of things, SOP, because the moment you have a lower state of charge and you want to have a full throttle probably on a highway or maybe a flyover, you can't offer that. So then it becomes a system level play. A lot of times I'm seeing you have vehicles where they don't have a VCU or a motor controller, and effectively you want to drive a vehicle assuming that the BMS will manage everything. That won't happen. Right? So BMS can only protect its battery and give you inputs, and the vehicle has to manage itself. So I'm saying from a competency and knowledge perspective, we are pretty much there. The SOC, SOH and all, these need, as Rashmi also mentioned, a lot of data and time for those things to be hypotheses to be validated or disproved. Right? So I've used the logic, I probably run it for half a year to know that I am 5% accuracy or 3% accuracy. So I think these will only get better over time. But I think other than that, but you need to be committed to be doing this. So at Livguard, I can tell you, for example, we have cells that we have run for 4,000 cycles in our lab.
Okay.
Right. So there was no need for that to be done, but keep doing it. So every time we have a cell selection, whether we make a pack or we don't make a pack, prospective suppliers, you characterize it, and you characterize it no end.
Got it.
Right. So then over time, these learnings will have to get into. So again, as your confidence level keeps improving, you start releasing some of these things into production.
Right. So there's one approach that Livguard takes, right? Do it more than you probably need, 4,000 cycles, because you just want to be sure, right? That is one approach. But then, Dr. Joshi, we are staring at an industry today with 490 plus supposed EV OEMs, right? There's bound to be consolidation. I mean, there's no way an industry, a market like India would probably have 500 EV OEMs running, doing business. But that to me seems like one of the issues, wherein there's no clear focus on core engineering or even simple engineering to make things happen. Probably a lot of decisions are being driven by the cost aspect. Would you agree to that?
You see, you rightly said there are so many new EV OEMs and they are mushrooming, to be very precise at the moment. But the only motivation from them is there's a product which is available in China, which they can try to bring it here. So there's no engineering happening.
Right.
So once the engineered products like Ather are in the market, or maybe the Japanese OEMs come up with a product which they already have, but they are not launching those products to the Indian market, or for that matter, companies like Hero MotoCorp or Bajaj, who are established two-wheeler OEMs, will definitely try to bring a product of their reputation which is up to their reputation. So once these kind of products are there, then this is my personal opinion that these OEMs which are I would not like to use the word fly by night, but they don't have engineering available at their end, so they don't have any knowledge of the product. The reason I'm trying to tell you this is because while we are doing the testing and validation of these products at ICAT, we often face a lot of problems of non-conformances, and when we try to discuss with them to help them out that there is a non-conformance, we know how to do it, but we needed a design access to handle it, right? Suppose there is a problem with the electromagnetic compatibility non-compliance. What we do, either we use hit and trial method, which is actually not acceptable from the final product point of view. Of course, you can do a stopgap arrangement, try to push a proto forward, but eventually that has to go into the design, right? Now, when we request them to have give us a design access, they don't have any idea, because the product belongs to China, and they have not been given any information about that product except an invoice which says that a container containing these many vehicles have been shipped to India. That's it. So that's a real problem, and I think consolidation is bound to happen if this continues.
One clear step that we as an industry must take is awareness, education, right? I mean, it's not just consumers, but within the industry, right? I mean, like Dr. Joshi just mentioned, he almost refrained from saying fly-by-night operators, but the fact is there are such operators in the market. Now, one, they aren't doing any good to the industry overall. They're probably doing more harm to the industry, right? For serious players that we have in the panel today, it's not helping. So how do we as an industry really build that awareness, educate OEMs or supposedly interested people who wants to get into EV manufacturing? What kind of steps can we take? Rashmi, your thoughts?
Thanks, Deepangshu. This is a good question. I think the fact that we are here, and we as not an OEM, but I would like to believe a very important part of the ecosystem today. Because when we started 10 years back or 11 years back, Mathworks was probably like, yeah, we will enable you to do the modeling, to do the code generation and so on. But today the conversations that I'm having with customers are very different. We are hearing the word partner, right? To partner with us. I think Mr. Narang also said the industry today is not looking at competition, it's looking at co-optation. So we need, I think, as an ecosystem to have more such sessions. First, to drive this mindset to say that, hey, design thinking is important, because otherwise you're not going to sustain, right? Deepangshu, you did a nice event around the two-wheeler sometime back, and I was going through that, similar messages there. So I think for us in this ecosystem, we are basically looking at partnering with industry bodies. We are looking at partnering with startups. Sunil spoke to it, right? Because while they say, there's 1/8 among I don't know how many startups, that 1/8 to nurture and to find those, more of those is where we want to basically contribute. And the third
this will go up to 6 o'clock.
And the third area, I think, and I'd like to also understand from my panelists, is go down to the students, go down to the grassroots and teach them the right kind of engineering and build that awareness at the grassroots level, so that when they come to the industry, they have the right tools, they have the right design thinking to be able to do that. So I think as an ecosystem, we have to do this, Deepangshu, and that's where basically we'll go to that next level of design thinking, quality product, and everything that we have been talking about.
That's a great point, Rashmi. In fact, I'm not aware. I was not part of this session today in the morning, but I don't know how many startups really participated in this seminar today. I don't know how many are keen to actually learn. So I think that's okay. No, I'm sure there must be, and I'm saying, because we're talking of an ecosystem, we're talking of an industry where hundreds of companies, thousands of people are looking at investing their future into this, right? So this, awareness, education becomes very, very important. It's not just about being on stage, talking about, one's product, but also learning from people around. So I think that participation becomes very, very important, Rashmi. I totally buy your point. Anyone else? Would you have a comment to make?
Also regulations.
Right. Let's talk about
So one more thing I would like to mention is the regulations in place. There are certain regulations in place. Those regulations are mainly focused on type approval. There has to be a regime of conformity of production which has to come, so that a continuous surveillance happens till the time the product is completely evolved. We have seen evolution of products since 2005. Ever since I joined AIREA in 2005, there was a biggest rollout of regulations happened at that point of time. That was type approval and COP of the components. And you see where we are after 17 years. We are competitive. We are exporting vehicles from here. Our products are world class as far as automotive is concerned. The entire credit goes to the set of regulations which you try to bring in at that point of time. That is a success story, I would like to say. Similar thing has to happen for EVs also, because we are refraining to be. We have been pushing the nodal ministries for bringing in the COP regulations for batteries. We have been pushing to bring the COP regime for various other products as far as EV is concerned. That is very much required. That surveillance helps to evolve, and that also helps to take care of the non-serious players.
Sure.
Yeah, thank you.
So that was going to be one of my points as well, but COP is something which is started to see rolling out now. We have audits across industries in EV starting, right, as was previously mentioned in the presentation as well. So that is one thing that the industry, for the government body, has started doing, or is beginning to do it. Is beginning to do for the manufacturers. At the same time, I also particularly feel for the consumer awareness. We have, as a industry, put forward a request to the heavy industry to start a mission. Like Swachh Bharat Abhiyan is now known to everybody, right? So that sincerity comes in to the consumer and to the general public also when the national level mission is announced. So that is something that is totally out of the box, could be done, and that proposal is in process. Thirdly, I feel as an industry, like as a manufacturer, what sensitization you can do to your fellow industry partners. So we have in the battery community also, we have a small association of all the battery manufacturer OEMs where we discuss our problems, where we share the challenges. Whom not to work with is a very major question. Okay, don't work with this sort of customer because they have no engineering. At the end of the day, the repercussions are on the battery manufacturer. So all of these things are open forum discussion rather than competition. It's a coexisting, as ma'am also mentioned. That is number 3. Number 4, I feel particularly with the skill development. So there have been certain programs which have started and that have been trickled down to universities and colleges where certain specific modules with respect to electric vehicles have been introduced now in the last 6-8 months. And that has helped us a lot, specifically tying up with nearby institutions and universities to take the graduate engineers from there, put them under training further into our own manufacturing plant, and then have a 3-year career roadmap for them, so how they can actually be on roll permanently and graduate from that. So I think skill development is also going to add a lot into the build quality and their entire workforce development. So covering the consumer, the ministry and the compliance bodies, back to the industry, and then the labor intensive work that is happening, how to upgrade the skill, and that I think. And the last piece I feel where we are working on is how to. I see a foreseeable challenge in the roadside mechanics which will come in, right? So it was very interesting panel discussion was happening roughly a year back, and we were discussing how to incorporate those people also once the EVs transition, in fully. As by 2030, we have to do it as a country. So what will be their role? So we start working on those roles already as an industry, I'd say, not as Okaya, as an industry, and we start creating a business model for them. Some companies have started doing that. We are one of them. Start creating a business model for them so that how they can actually earn out of this, not just servicing, but be a kirana charger, for example, charging point, or providing a stopgap solution without really faulting the electronics. So that is going to be a real-time challenge in the future. But I think if we to, and we are, I don't want to say nothing is happening, but a lot has been happening, and it's been exponential. It's not a slow transition, it's an exponential transition for India. And I'm really happy that it's all coming together. For me, it's been probably 5 years witnessing the industry from 2017 till now, and massive amount of transformation. It's not even a change, it's a transformation.
That's so heartening to hear, actually, right? Because those are the steps that are absolutely required. Skilling, reskilling, upskilling, all of that is needed in this industry. And plus, you actually talked about the serviceability aspect and the roadside mechanics, which are going to be a very, very critical key stakeholder in the whole process. I don't know how much time we have, but I'd like to take some questions from the audience. Anyone, if you have a question, please raise your hand. Any questions?
Hi sir, good evening.
Good evening.
Yeah, we have a negative point that you are telling that some of the startups are just an importer, they are doing some business and spoiling the market. But I would like to say here, and we have our own prototype. I can even share my link here for the first look teaser. And we indigenously produce, designed and developed by ourselves and even manufactured in-house, except the controller, motor, and the cells, which we are depending on overseas, because my speed bike, super bike motor is around 6 kilowatt, and it's a peak power of 10 kilowatt with 5 kilowatt hour battery pack, LFP, and the controller supposed to pump at a peak level of 600 amps. So, which is the first in the country, designed and developed by us, even tested by us successfully. And I proudly share here because we have a positive aspect here, and this is our product, and I hope everybody focus on this way to improve the research and development. And I'm still happy that today's session is very meaningful. I attended and listened to Mr. Representative from Okaya, Kalyani Group, and definitely I'm going to work in future, depend on the funding, and use their products to improve and bring our product to the market, to the to the township, at least to the countryside, to the manageable price, with the manageable pricing.
Sure, sir. Your point is well taken, and I think when a panelist talked about startups, this is a general observation. That's what I think the panelist talked about. Dr. Joshi, please.
I request you to kindly don't get offended. It is not a general statement. It is what we have been observing with some companies. So this is nothing specific to any startup or something. So if that is the case, I would like to apologize if that is the case. That is the first thing. Just on the lighter side, sir, how you are going to bring that signature noise to your power bike, which we normally see in a motorbike?
My side, the sound is so good. It's like a flight is flying. You can listen sometime that the motor itself has the sound which is enough to the upcoming traffic to listen. It's not just quiet. Even we can fix some audio system to improve the sound as per the audience or the public. What do you think, sir?
Thank you.
Welcome, sir.
Wonderful. So I'm sure Dr. Joshi, you'll soon have more details coming in from him. Any other questions or observations from? Yes, please.
Some of the fire issues which I came to know, and we discussed with the supplier. We are manufacturer of the mechanical water pump, and we are trying to get into the electric water pump for the electric vehicle cooling system. So they say that because of the Indian environment condition, they are slightly higher temperature than European and Chinese. So those battery get heated up comparatively faster, and they catch as fire. And during their own testing in China and Europe, they don't get fire. So they are trying to introduce some electrical water pump which can make the cooling more efficient for this battery. So how do you see that some electrical water pump getting cooled in
Basically,
two-wheeler
you're
and three-wheeler?
saying what is the role an electrical water pump can play in
okay.
ensuring safety of two-wheelers?
Yes.
Right? Would you like to take that?
Sure. So, So I think there is definitely scope, and India is known for its amazing R&D. We are seeing R&D centers of various multinational companies actually being situated here. So there is a definite possibility of that, and it is something that we have seen also. I've seen particularly for 3-wheeler, 4-wheeler water cool based solutions, and currently most of the industries on thermal or forced cooling basis. But that is a possibility, I think, which will come in. It's just about a matter of cost, and when you're hitting the right segment, if it's I don't know if you were there in that presentation, but if the price, mileage, performance, all those balances are done, and the price of that component in bill vis-a-vis the customer accepting it, so that the brand or the product is not outpriced, it should also be a acceptable solution for the consumer with respect to the price of the product. So if that challenge is solved, I think it's something that no OEM will deny using it. So that's usually the challenge is the prices become extremely challenging.
Yeah, correct.
So we have to go back to our thermal, it's a conductive way of cooling or a forced air cooling method or something like that. It's relatively, then you're just back with the basic mechanical design, so battery component selection and all that. So that is my thought process.
Just to mention the criticality of this, maintaining the battery during the charge and discharge, the temperature, right? There are studies available, you can see it on the internet. If you are operating batteries beyond the acceptable temperature range, though lithium-ion batteries have a very wide temperature, that is one of the advantages with these batteries. But if you are crossing that limit, every 1 degree rise is going to reduce the life of the battery by 2 months. Okay, so this cooling is highly critical.
Any further questions? Anyone else? In the room or virtually, if someone's watching us?
Hello.
Yeah, please.
Just an interesting observation when it comes to saving life of the people. Suppose there is a three-wheeler, and there are 3 to 4 modules of battery is there, and if one goes thermal runout is there in one of the battery, and that battery is pushed out person spring back mechanism from outside the vehicle, it can save the vehicle, passengers and everyone. Why not something like a precaution can be added? Just thought process.
Right? I think in buses something, what you are saying, if I can answer that.
Yeah, please.
So in buses something like not pushing out the batteries, but an alternative way of ensuring that nobody is getting hurt is developed. So if the BMS senses that there's going to be a thermal runaway, so that doors automatically open, the buses stay idle for 3 minutes, they can't really operate, the driver's commands are nullified, wherever it is, it will just stand and just evacuate people, so that at least the passengers are kept safe. Those levels of safety have been taken in buses. Yet to come up with an interesting solution for if you throw out the battery there, I don't know what will happen to the rest of the people. But yeah, there could be certain amazing ideas. It's the more as a company, anybody can collaborate with think tanks, whether it's universities, individual startups, companies, whatever. I think the ideas are so many. Mere dimag mein bhi so many ideas, but at the end of the day, the DBT processes are so stringent. You create, by the time it's going to roll out, it's going to be, I think, 4 years.
Better is to have a preventive mechanism rather than to have a situation.
Correct.
All right, so I think what we'll do is, I'll start with you, Anand. Final comments on the discussion. We've discussed challenges, concerns, possible solutions as well. But quick 1 minute closure comments on what we discussed today.
So first of all, thank you so much for having us and bringing this to our discussion forum. So takeaways for me, let's say, are obviously design. I guess all of us agree. It has to be designed by design safe. You cannot have retrospective things coming in and adding value. So that is inherent. Good point that Anshul also raised was on the people, the skill. Today we have the amount of talent available that can add this kind of value. We've been making IC engines for 50, 60, 70 years, forever. And there is enough number of people, enough number of references also. So if you have to make a DVP for an electric vehicle, probably first you need to understand how that works. So that talent pool leveraging, so for me, even for you, I would love to collaborate with ICAT, if that can be done for us. So that is a major takeaway for me as well. So those are two things that, and also you mentioned on creating awareness. So that point also, two things that we're doing there. One is wherever we meet to customers, I think we probably also look at hosting some of these events by ourselves, inviting customers, prospective customers to at least see what the product is, because talking doesn't help. You have to come and differentiate different products and then make the user take an informed decision. I think that's the job that we'll have to do.
Right.
To bring the information to the table, and then it's your choice, you can buy it.
What you just said reminded me of some Bollywood movie. I can't remember what the name is, but said, if someone does good to you, you pass on that goodness to 3 more people, and then it multiplies, right? So if that is the case, then spreading awareness, spreading knowledge, if we take the same approach, I'm sure this is going to benefit the industry. Rashmi?
So, in closing, Deepangshu, I'd like to say that safety is a journey. We have to begin to think on design principles. We have to play in an ecosystem to help each other, so that we achieve what we want to as a country in this EV dream. We are open to working with the range of players in this ecosystem, be it academia, startups, or basically companies like Ather who have now established themselves. And of course, special thanks. I'd like to use this closing to say thank you to ICAT to help us to put up this event. I think we were talking about it 3 months back, the team here, and the fact that Pamela ma'am and ICAT took it up so well. Thank you, Mr. Sogata, Mr. Joshi, Pamela ma'am, for helping us to have events like this, because I think this is the start, and we have an exciting journey ahead. So this is what I'd like to say. Thanks, Deepangshu.
Thank you. Dr. Joshi?
Just 3 comments. I would like to just try to consolidate what the speakers have said. One is the most important aspect is safety by design. That has to be incorporated in the entire product as far as EV is concerned. The second is the bringing in the right regulations, because skilling will take time. So initially we have to have right regulations in place, which I already mentioned in detail. And the third, of course, is the ongoing process of scaling. Right. These 3 important things, I think that will take us, make this EV story for India really a wonderful experience. Thank you.
Thank you. For me, also to sum it up, firstly, thank you so much, Deepangshu, to moderate the session, and ICAT for having me here, and really it's been a really encouraging discussion. Lots to know what's happening by December, COPs and the other regulations which have come out. The key takeaways for me, if I have to sum it up, you clearly, Deepangshu mentioned there are pre-challenges and there are post-challenges. So within that, pre-one, the importance of design and validation. I think as far as all of us are confirmed, highlight of the entire discussion was the importance of design and validation process. And the pre-hardware simulation was a key takeaway which I learned from ma'am's discussion. And I think post one, which is also again from ma'am's discussion, was big data analytics, right? The importance of big data and how you can proactively, preemptively use that. So that is something that we as a company are working on. So where I need to scale up that working. So that is a personal key takeaway for me. And the COP's adherence and safety guidelines. So that is something I would like to say.
Superb. So we've had our panelists today sum up the discussion pretty aptly, and I'm sure Rashmi has been saying that safety is a journey, and I'm sure this is a journey that we will continue to undertake, and and continue to learn in the process. Thank you so much for being a lovely audience, and appreciate the opportunity once again. Thank you.
Thank you, Deepangshu sir, for conducting this session. I also thank all the distinguished members of the panel for presenting your insightful thoughts. May I now request the moderator of the session, Shri Deepangshu Dev Sarmah, to handing the saplings to all the panel members. First, to Shri Anant Mishra. to Smt Rashmi Rao. Now to Shri Anshul Gupta. Now to Dr. Madhusudan Joshi. Thank you, sir. Now I request Dr. Madhusudan Joshi to hand over the memento to session moderator Shri Deepangshu Dev Sarmah. Thank you, sir. I thank all the distinguished panel members for sparing their precious time for enriching our knowledge by their India and global experiences. Now I request Dr. Madhusudan Joshi, SBO ICAT, to deliver a vote of thanks. Thank you, sirs.
Thank you, Asta. I will be very quick because it's already late now. So I would like to thank all the speakers for the inaugural session, for the technical session, and of course for the panel discussion. The discussions today has, I think, have went in the right direction, and very right perspectives and thoughts have been brought on the table. And it's time for us to, gain out of these experiences and discussions, and make this EV thing for India a really workable and wonderful experience. Thank you so much, and I hope to see you again in some other event, which we'll keep on organizing, and we'll try to bring in the right knowledge and right people to address the various issues which we keep on facing, and this will be a kind of a training and learning curve for all of us. Thank you so much.